Alright, now let's check out the extras. Judging from the Paris office, why not with a photo of a Gurren background? Starting with the costume descriptions. Forged long ago for Great General, this heavy armor was made to battle even demon enemies. Its unique construction withstands the fiercest flames, while its shield can reflect fireballs. Yeah, pretty spiffy. Again, the shield vibration deflector. Jailbird costume. Reserved for the worst criminals in the Old West, this prison outfit sports a heavy iron ball and chain attached to the wearer's leg, not really, restricting movement. However, the wearer can use the colossal ball to smash objects and inflict massive structural damage. Yeah, I get the idea this costume was, planned like this without the rolling on the ball. Created by a shaman at dawn of history, this saber-toothed tiger outfit looks as ferocious as it's powerful. Enhancing one's primal abilities, it grants the wearer the stealthiness and hunting prowess of a cat, including a killer feral pounce.
However that works.
Well, okay, to be fair, they did explain that it's magic, so I'll take that. Some say this outfit was tailored by a genius, but whatever the case, it certainly spawned a fashion trend in merry old England. Combining stylish good looks with rugged durability, it allows the wearer to fire arrows with attached ropes, creating tightrope pathways. Again, totally not Robin Hood with wear. It's rumored to have been crafted for Sinbad by a real genie, this ancient mysterious outfit is as dazzling as it's powerful. Its used scimitar can slash right through chains, and the wearer even gains the ability to slow time.
I think it's hard to guess which is my favorite of the costumes. Maybe the Archer one or the
weird,
Sinbad one.
Also,
very
let's play some ping pong.
It's a very specific power, though. That'd be
Like
like if
table tennis.
that'd be like if wearing a chef's hat allowed me to create portals.
You have never played a Kirby game, Leaves, right?
I played the original one on Game Boy.
Yeah, that one does not have the copy abilities. So yeah, the table tennis game is relatively fine. I just wish Bentley's icon was not staring into my soul. So
Hey, at least he's
Maybe
not
that's
still.
maybe the aim's to distract you.
Now imagine those black beady eyes behind those glasses staring at you. Since now we
Please
know.
no.
Now we know what he looks like without his glasses.
it's like Eggman in Sonic 06.
You know, I can imagine it.
That.
Yeah, I can imagine this now. How they advertise this extra bit. Hey, do you love Rockstar Games presents table tennis, but wish it involved Sly Cooper characters? Then come out and buy Sly Cooper Thieves in time.
Again, this is a harmless minigame, very simple, relatively fun if you're a fan of it. You even get a trophy if you perform a specific type of action, I forgot which one. But let's give a look at the treasures. Starting with this meditation turtle. A statue of a Buddha turtle is known to give off an aura of kindness and friendship to all who possess it.
Now,
You can also rotate each item in 360 degree, so you can check some particular trivia if you actually watch it. Gyro Slicer 2000, created by a cranky yet clever Cooper, the Gyro Slicer 2000 was a hit during the Arabian market crash of 1001 AD. King Monkey Love. This mysterious figurative monkey sculpture is rumored to imbue its owner with the power of animal magnetism, turning even the most sheepish of suitors into irresistible love machines.
so I'm curious, Theo. How much fun would you say you had 100%ing or platinuming this game?
Fun enough. This mysterious contraption was first discovered in the wreckage of a sunken Roman vessel. It gives off a pleasant series of musical tones and a faint vibration when it's wound up, but has no other discernible effect so far. I will tell more in the final part, Jova, don't worry. The Mona Lisa, which apparently looks like Carmelita. Why did
Get it, Theo? Ever
Oh,
since.
here we go. The portrait of this young lady is of Mona Lisa, the famous detective. Soon after the painting was finished, she revealed herself to the artist and apprehended him for forging canvases.
So,
I wish Carmelita acted like this in this game.
Kind of makes you wonder if her family line has also been chasing his
Jade
family
Samurai
line.
Element. A masterpiece carved entirely from a single piece of jade. This element is said to have belonged to a great samurai hippo. And looks spiffy enough. Golden lion statue. This lion figurine made from solid gold depicts a guardian entity said to protect its owner from harm. Something Koma-san. The Ninja Cookbook. Ryoichi Cooper's book contains many secret sushi recipes, including one for his famous ranger rolls. Yummy. Made of the finest porcelain, this lucky cat statue is said to bring both good luck and wealth, thus ensure it pickpocketing success. Now, that's not how it works. Oh, the raccoon Daruma. A traditional Japanese doll, the Daruma is a symbol of perseverance and good luck. This Daruma's unique face is thought to resemble a raccoon. Very stylistic. I'm pretty sure the ideogram actually do mean particularly something, they did not put them just by random. 101 ways to cook scorpion. 101 different ways to cook the giant Arabian scorpion. Revel in the splendor of scorpion tail cacciatore and scorpion claw chemise. Yummy. Marble Horsehead. Marble bust of a majestic Arabian stallion. Centuries old, the statue is said to bring great strength in battle. Yeah, some of the descriptions are a bit better than others. An ancient tribute to the deadly cobra of Arabia. Made of solid gold, the golden cobra statue is priceless. Arabian carpet, made from the finest silk. Don't forget to wipe your feet before you walk on it. Ha. A pillow. Diamond, rubies, and pearls dangle from this pink silk pillow, stolen from secretive world inside of the harem. Yeah, this is a particular item that you get from a secret area in the chapter 5. The Paradox commissioned this oil painting from a gay Renaissance painter. The Paradox is heroically posed, caressing his beloved detonator, which never leaves his side, which we
He probably never paid.
We never saw him use that in game.
Yeah, we don't. Okay. Thieves treasure chest. Treasure chest full of coins, jewels, pearls, once part of a mighty 40 Thieves treasure collection. Sadly, this is all that remains of a Thieves past exploit.
Okay, Tia, you mentioned this in an earlier part, but yeah, some of these treasures seem to suggest that we were supposed to get certain things in this game that just plain didn't make it.
Not many golden lamps in Arabia room to have magic powers or maybe even a genie in it. Miss Decibel painting. Miss Decibel portrayed in her lavish pink jacket and feather boa. You couldn't add more to this text? Seriously?
Oh,
Whatever. A jewel-encrusted silver scimitar. Jewel covered this ceremonial silver scimitar, rumored to have been the battle sword of Prince Azad. Legend said Prince Azad single-handedly fought the Damar tribe. Not the Adil Da'aka, for shame. The Guru's staff appears to have broken, but this is the most important piece, as he still holds his powerful moonstone. Maybe one day you can help him repair the staff, but for now all damage to the player is reduced by 50%. This is one of those items that you get from the vaults that you get with the bulls. Tales of a Samurai Hippo comic. The classic tale of a wandering samurai hippo known for his great strength and great appetite, especially for sushi rolls. Well, the first manga ever made. A marvel of Japanese culture, it is said this mysterious culture was a model after a fiendish swordman. Wilbur the Angel was a samurai warrior known for his brute strength and a way with the ladies. Charming. A jade peach. Perhaps inspired by the Peach Boy legend, this large ornamental peach is carved from a pink jade with a giant ruby for a pit. Do not eat it.
No, don't.
A golden teapot, Shiroi. Unique golden clay used to make this ancient teapot is said to give tea an incomparable flavor. Only the most notable ninja masters are allowed to drink the sacred tea. So get to training. A dragon claw. Made from a mysterious metal alloy, this dragon claw grasps a gigantic perfect pair, a symbol of wisdom. However, some believe it's not meant to be a dragon's claw at all, but that of a gigantic owl. And if we turn it,
Clockwork
it seems
was
Clockwork
here.
lost some pieces.
Also, Tio, one of the nicknames I was given in work is Ninja, so hand over the teapot.
That sounds like a veiled threat.
That's because it is.
Yeah, this is another item that you can get, a coin based on Maxwell's Empire, and it basically increases the coin drop that you get, so get it as soon as possible, basically. Miss Puffin's cookie jar. Stealing from Miss Puffin's cookie jar was one of the gang's earliest heists. Bentley devised the plan to steal a jar of Mrs. Puffin's desk, as Light snatched the cookie jar in his cap just as the janitor arrived. That's nice. A bright cane polish. Tired of lizard scales and porcupine quills coughing up your cane? The Cooper family choice for centuries. Just apply a small dab of polish and buff with a clean cloth. Look at that cane shine.
It's so shiny, even the jar is shining.
Brass spyglass. A collapsible brass spyglass with an embossed pattern on the side. It makes a fashionable addition to any Thieves toolkit. A stained glass compass. A custom-made compass of intricate stained glass designs, meant to be worn on the wrist, essential for navigating unfamiliar places. Very fragile, though. Young Sly Cooper would place this vase in hallways and hide inside, waiting for unsuspecting victims to go to walk by before picking out or grab valuables. Keep that in mind for the end of the part. A T-Rex call, the world's smallest T-Rex call. Thank you. Can't you add like at least another phrase? Dino eggs. Eggs like these used to be the main source of food for the inhabitants of the region, but after Grease and his minions arrived, they become more and more scarce. The very first wheel was made of stone and started off square, but after years of rigorous testing, the shape started to form and turned out becoming an hexagonal shape. A few more tumbles down the hill, and who knows what shape it will turn out to be. Also, who knows? Typo. Saber-tooth skull. The Grease often pull down these skulls to scare the saber-tooth soldier into following orders. It's actually made of hollow wood, but they wouldn't know the difference. A key, we will look more like Kidar. This key opens the door to the Grease's private hangout. It was made from the tusk of the first and only mammoth who made fun of his fancy jumpsuit.
I feel like the descriptions on the heads in Puppeteer were wittier.
After Sly took down Sarah Raleigh's store machine and Carmita took the pesky frog to jail, all that was left of his criminal activity was his distinctive hat floating adrift in the ocean. Raleigh's act prevents the player from taking damage when falling in water. Again, really useful. Cash is the perfect gift any time of the year, and this fancy currency tote is the perfect accessory for any Wild West fashionista. Made from fall weather burlap with a thick horsehair braid which easily cinches up to protect your precious currency. Buy now, I guess. Steer horns. This ordinary old bull never saw what shocked him, but you squeal with excitement every time you lay your eyes on this boss trophy, mounted proudly on your hideout wall to let visitors know that you don't take no grab from nobody know how. Pooh. A golden spike. Adorn your trophy shelf with this charming commemorative golden railroad spike which perfectly captures the excitement of riding rails through the Wild West. Ideal as a conversation starter or use it to fight off surly jackalopes. A smooth brushed purple suede adds a touch of chic to this fabulous 10-gallon hat. Notice the historic replica arrow which provides a delightful flourish while making a bold statement about your adventurous spirit and probably some cultural insensitivity. Moving on. Don't be an afterthought in the afterlife. Leave your mark on the world with this inexpensive yet functional tombstone, which will tell the world who you were and how long you were kicking around for. Customize your tombstone with a motion sensor and your favorite tune to bring a smile to all your kin.
Classy.
Lovely.
Carrying Cooper Giva is one of Sly's more mysterious ancestors, but her gift of financial magnetism is an enduring treasure that makes coin collecting a breeze. This treasure magnetic attracts all nearby coins. If you forgot, this was slightly similar. The ancestor was mentioned in the first game, actually. A detailed tome containing generations of archery secrets and techniques. Its pages are worn from time, but mostly readable. A bookmark page towards the back reveals how to steer an arrow even after it's been loosed. A meticulous detailed replica of iconic village bell tower, adorned with gold trim and polished brass, the workmanship is top-notch. A pin. A heavy woolen rolling pin lined with short metal spikes, useful for both baking and self-defense. Oh, look at that! A curious figurine of untold origin. Its armor is quite unlike anything from the medieval time period. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's fine. Just don't attach a long box to it.
Looks all rusty and clanky.
A sparkling woman's shoe, handcrafted from fine leather and covered in expensive jewels. Shiny but uncomfortable.
What do you think, Shiroi? Looks like a fashion sense.
Oh, and speaking of, instead of JoJo references, the golden arrow, a decorative arrow forged from the purest gold. Its incredible luster is matched only by its poor aerodynamics.
They say that stabbing someone with it gives them a stand.
A velvet sack stuffed to the brim with coins, jewels, and other treasures. The gold stitching and crown symbols on the sign suggest that it once belonged to someone of royalty.
Well, this is the golden arrow from possibly
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah. Oh, is it from Yu-Gi-Oh?
Remember
No.
the
I thought you were
first
referencing
the first
JoJo.
series had Yu-Gi-Oh! Pull that shitty card every time and he did whatever he
That
wanted.
wasn't a golden
Yeah.
arrow though. That was like it was called
Living
something
arrow.
else.
That's living arrow.
Well,
too.
it was like shining, but whatever. A large envelope made of solid gold and showing little signs of wear. Extremely heavy and extremely valuable.
Hasatio,
Also-
the golden arrow. That's a JoJo's reference.
Well, that too, but remember, JoJo did shape a bit of what future series of Shonen Jump had in all the ways. So it might have been also a neat way to reference it. Anyway, a single piece of clockwork survived destruction of the hate ship. No. Landing through the claim that the Cooper gang had not seen the last of him.
No.
Possessing this potentially evil artifact reveals the location of balls and safe in the Binococom. It's
No.
useful, but it makes no fucking sense.
No. Clockwork was absolutely destroyed in the end.
If it
Didn't
was
you do your
okay, if
history?
the description was something like, say, this was originally part of Clockwork, but he replaced it with a better one, this would have made perfectly sense to me. But no, we actually had to mention that it's after Eventos Light 2, which makes no sense.
I will never understand
Anyway.
people who have such an obvious better way to get out of stuff, but choose, no, I'm gonna do the stupid thing anyway.
Anyway, nobody will ever tell you again to put some milk on a wimpy mustache and let the cat lick it up. Let the world know that you mean business with this thicky, manly face accessory made from only the finest donkey hair. Comes with a tube of spirit glue for easy application to any part of the face.
How nice.
This handsome Sanzaru branding iron is perfect for searing the delightful monkey logo on just about anybody's hindquarters. The high-grade Coopernium alloy non-stick surface ensure a perfect mark every time with no painful sticking.
Imagine.
Don't try this at home, kids. Who needs a fancy name or label for their drink? This inexpensive brew perfectly mixes delicate notes of the fine grains with our secret aromatic spice, then to make a fun time fuel that will launch your next party into orbit. Never tried sarsaparilla, so I don't know. Yes, it's very shiny. I was wondering if I could read what was on the bottom or whatever. Who named this street Danger Avenue? What kind of crazy snake wears a hat and plays a maraca? Who knows, but laughter is the best medicine, and this hysterical joke prop will make a great conversation starter for any party or family get-together. Okay. A cave painting, a stone tablet with the etching of an ancient turtle floating on some kind of mechanical device. Where could I have seen this before? A limestone covered in precious rubies. Gems like these were collected to decorate Grease's crown and giving the sense of worth he always desired. And for the next one, we're having another cameo. Lutrella nivadensis. The Lutrella nivadensis is a rare hybrid species of the carnivore family. It is known for its orange fur and loud mouth. I'm sure they're not really important. Grease's skates. Grease's favorite pair of skates he had since he was a little cub. They were custom made for his paws by the world's greatest skate makers, the Mina and Sabine Co. I don't know what a reference of that is. This savage weapon covered with spikes was used to pierce through the top of frozen kuro berries, the most delicious fruits in the land. Some might call it the first can opener. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the items, if I recall correctly. So next up, instead, I will show what you get from unlocking all of the collecting all of the masks and unlocking all the extras unlockable points. First of all, two different types of paraglider. One with the logo of Sanzaru on top of it, as I will demonstrate in a second.
Behold!
There we go. It's fine, nothing too spectacular. When it comes to the paraglider, I prefer the standard one, but the idea of having different versions of it, it's nice enough. So instead, the other one is a very generic camel one. Paraglider with a camouflage pattern, use it for those top secret flights. Requires to purchase the paraglider, obviously. Yeah, I don't get it. It's fine, but it looks very generic, and I'm not even sure why you will have to use it. It again, in terms of aesthetic, the standard paraglider for Sly just looks fine. But this one is just,
Meh.
not very particular. However, the next couple of unlocking actually gets things a bit more interesting, because each character gets an alternate costume, called Ultimate in this case. First of all is Sly's one. It's the first one you obtain.
Sly owns the darkest night in this costume. Cloaked in shadow, he lets forth his jet dark punches and kicks.
And it's the costume that Daffy Duck had when he was a devil. Okay,
I don't get how this is.
it might be a reference to the game Jersey Devil, the developers of Bugs Bunny Lost in Time did. I mean, it's harmless. I just don't see the connections of it.
It's weird how they mention also the whole darkness element. Like, maybe it's that he's the devil. I wonder if maybe they originally described him more as the devil, but that had to get censored because, oh my god, think of the children and all that. And mentioning devil
Well, let's see Bentley's one. Why not?
They say
you can't just body cover, but in this outfit, you know Bentley will reign supreme and execute some code.
Wow, that feels so 90s-ish. Not that there's anything wrong with being 90s-ish. The 90s could be pretty awesome.
It's fine. It gives him like, there you go, the unhelmet, more similar to the one of Sly 3, and with an actual jacket, and even changes the wheelchair. It's harmless. I don't really particularly feel the need for it, but it's fine.
I do feel like calling these costumes ultimate costumes may have been a bit of a weird choice. Like, I mean, nothing about the costumes necessarily screams like, oh, they're the best and ultimate. I feel like they could have maybe have tried coming up with more creative names for them. Like, I don't know. For me, I felt a bit let down by them because they're called ultimate, so, oh, they should be the best, but yeah, some of them just don't really cut the mustard for me. Again, mind you, that's like a much smaller detail, but I do feel like they could have come up with better names for them.
Alright, Murray, we actually have seen it already, believe it or not. Murray has always been special, but in this gear he's gone special ops. His tactics are simple but effective, never fight on an empty stomach.
And let's see what his ultimate costume is.
Again, it's the one that we saw before, specifically in Chapter 4, where he basically dressed up to bomb the entrance of the castle in the final mission. It's basically a diving suit with a slight reference to Splinter Cell by having the free googly type of, binocucon.
Like I said, it's not a bad costume, but saying it's ultimate.
Okay, here's instead my favorite, which is the one that you really need to unlock, to unlock, the one for Carmelita.
I was kind of dreading this one.
When Carmelita dons the outfit, the uniform of elite law enforcement criminal, everyone quake with fear. Not to mention Black is always in style. No, don't worry, Shiroi. I actually mean it for real this time. I genuinely believe this particular outfit, alternate outfit, works much better because it's a traditional Black Widow style, jumpsuit. Kind of like
it's fine, but I kind of
find it gives a more decent look. Sure, again, it's not the original outfit from the previous trilogy, but it's a much better alternative to the default outfit she has in this game, I argue.
I mean, my issue with it is that I feel like it's kind of generic. Like, you know what? Also, it's a bit of a missed. It's kind of a missed chance for these costumes to also have special abilities, so that's a shame. But yeah, again, Carmelita's outfit, well, her ultimate costume.
But hold on. The last two unlockables are two different things that replaces Sly's cane. One, the first one I'm showing, is the last thing you can obtain, is the amplifier weapon that Cole McGrath wears in Infamous 2. Again, because Sucker Punch did that, so it's a neat callback to that. They don't change anything gameplay-wise, but again, it's just an aesthetic thing, and it looks cute enough as a reference.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. It's also something that games like the Ratchet & Clank Future games already started implementing some Easter eggs from the other franchises. The PS2 games also had it, but in a very minor capacity. The PS3 games started also having it on their own. So Sly jumping in on the fun on this is perfectly fine by me. But the other is instead Ratchet's Omni Wrench. While on Origins, some even say it's none of his Earth. While useful for ratcheting balls, it's even better for smacking enemies. Clank, very clever. Go to hell, game.
Honestly, that's one of the more clever things to come out of this game, sadly.
Very forced pun. And yeah, it's specifically the one of A Crank in Time, which is one of the more recognizable designs, so fair enough.
Which seems to
And
be
it
the
replaces all the
which seems
currency,
to be-
and it replaces all the coins that you get with the bolts from Ratchet and Clank. So that's also pretty neat.
It's
Yeah,
here,
Blibs.
Ratchet and Clank is the king of forced puns for their game titles.
well, okay, to each their own. But anyway, now that we're done with the collectibles, there's only one last thing to mention: the secret ending. I forgot specifically how you
okay, here
unlock
we
it,
go.
but it's basically another teasing. There's only
Hold on,
voice acting.
hold on.
It's all about visuals.
Really? I'm pretty sure there is.
No. So where Sly landed into, along with the rest of the blimp, ancient Egypt. Dweebs mentioned a long part ago that there were plans for a DLC. Yes, at some point, Sanzaro was supposed to plan a DLC level in Egypt that was going to essentially be a better conclusion with Sly meeting his ancestors like Tutankhamun. But that could not be implemented because it caused problem on the PS Vita version, and Sony wanted each version to have the same amount of content.
Oh yeah, because
which
we
means-
all knew Sony were going to support the PS Vita properly.
Which means that Sly, for all intents and purposes, has been stuck in ancient Egypt ever since.
Again,
Right.
folks, you waited
And
8
so
years.
Sly Cooper,
You waited 8 years for this game, fans, and now your protagonist has not only had his relationships wrecked, but he is essentially lost to time.
In time.
while it's a good job he wasn't there 4 years earlier, he'd have had to have seen he'd have to have seen Decepticon testicles.
But before we do our final thoughts, let me just mention one thing quickly. One thing that I think, my personal idea on what we were going to do ideally with a fifth game, considering all factors, the fact that Penelope manages to get out of jail and has her revenge against the gang, and the fact that she knows how to build a time machine on her own without having the Paradox supporting her. My personal theory was that they were going to tie everything together, compared also to what Joe mentioned, I think, in part 2, and have Penelope being the one who traveled back to the far past and create the hate ship so she could augment Clockwork, meaning that Clockwork roboticizing itself would have essentially being basically an action made from Penelope, and things will eventually end up going full circle on that front.
So a goddamn time loop.
Pretty much. I mean, it would still be a little stable compared to what the fuck happened here. But that's my idea on what happened. I still maintain the idea. I will elaborate more on my phone calls. I still maintain my idea that all the fuckery that has happened here can be fixed. But the series definitely needs a good writer.
It's
but
like well, too, your point is similar to my point made earlier here. If this had not been the last Sly Cooper game, this arguably would not be hated as much, but because this, as of now, is the last Sly Cooper game, that more or less makes it the series franchise killer, which means that, yeah, negative feelings are gonna be augmented towards this game. Like, I do think that if we'd gotten another game, and and the series had continued onward, this could have just been seen as like a bump in the road at worst. Might have been compared to Wrath of Cortex, albeit somewhat more negatively, because, yeah, seriously, the character assassination was real in this story. But still, at least the gameplay would have been fine. But no, it has that stigma of being what, as far as we know, killed the franchise, so... yeah.
Jeff, on the subject of Wrath of Cortex, you can't assassinate character if you barely have any in that game.
Well, that's why I said, Dwibs, this would be probably considered slightly worse than Wrath of Cortex because of that.
But anyway, let's start with final thoughts. Dwibs.
Alright, first of all, the positives. For a start, I think the graphics themselves are actually pretty good. I don't really see too much difference between this game and the other ones. Maybe it's because we looked at the PS3 versions of those, but I think they translated well to here. Also, the music, That's because that was that was the best decision the developers made of this game, bringing back the guy who did the music for 2 and 3. This time without the constraints of the PS2's comparatively smaller music file thing, whatever they do in that one. And the actual tone of the game is fine. It's like the other ones. It's like I said. That's why I made that cake comparison, because overall it's like Sanzaru copied a lot of the recipe book that the previous people made to a T, and it works out fine for the most part. Unfortunately, is when we get to okay, and also the voice acting was pretty good too, especially considering now we've got more seasoned VA veterans this time.
Mm-hmm.
And also the gameplay itself, other than the weird stuff involving the 6-axis. It's a bit odd. It was 2013. I really care by that point. Also worked pretty well, and I dread to imagine what some of that would have been on the Vita.
Okay, I don't remember. Actually, I've been trying myself. I actually don't. The Vita does have some gyro controls, so I don't know actually how they're implemented there.
Oh, no, I didn't buy that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there are a lot of cons as well. I'm not saying the other games were entirely innocent of furriness, and I'm not trying to kink shame anybody here, but the extent to what they go to here is bizarre, to say the least. Especially with the whole, especially with Carmelita.
And using the 6-axis to shake her junk and all that.
That's the thing. It doesn't even look like they're doing that. It's like she's trying to get out of that outfit, but she can't.
It's Mir trying to get out of the game at that point.
Carmelita trying to get out of that outfit. Then that would have turned the game into a striptease section.
Dover, at this point, would you be surprised if they did that?
No. No, I would not.
Yeah. That's one issue. The weird over fixation on furry stuff. Second, the problem I think with some of the plot turns in this game aren't the plot turns themselves, it's the execution. Namely Penelope's. It's like I said before. I still do believe that introducing new characters in what was supposed to be the final game of the series was a bit of a dumb move. Like, you've already got characters to finish off stories for and develop. Why add new ones?
Mm-hmm.
And so I can see what Sanzaru were going for this time. Sucker Punch just threw these characters in at the end and didn't do much of them. We'll do our own thing with them, which would be fine. The problem is what they did and how they did it.
Yeah.
I mean, a former good guy being a villain, I could see working, and with Penelope Sparks and that, I could see how that would go as well. Unfortunately, they don't really commit to it. She's on screen for like 10 minutes, and then that's it. Again, that's my thing, though. That's the thing overall in terms of, like I said, with the plot piece. The issue isn't that they're there; it's how they did it. Also, the act story itself. A lot of it is fine. It's just generally going around in time, stealing little bits and pieces. It'd be like if I turned my head up at RPGs just because I have to read a lot.
I don't know, Debs. You did mention how you wanted more voice acting in Ni no Kuni 2.
It depends, really.
I think the weird thing with Ni no Kuni 2 was, as we all mentioned, it sometimes had some weird inconsistencies with what got voiced or not.
The main issue with that is that Pedro, is that you're halfway through a scene and then the voice acting stops.
true.
Yeah, it was weirdly selective.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like Hiro suddenly ran out of budget and just gave up and left it half done. but so what was I saying? I was going on from the whole. I don't think. Oh yeah, the
Time travel is inherently a bad problem. Go ahead.
Yeah. I don't think time travel stories are inherently a bad thing, and to turn your head at them just because they've been done badly a lot of the time is a bit unfair. I should know. I've been doing. I did that myself in the past.
And you've learned and become a better person for it.
But the time travel here, okay, it's not the worst I've seen, but it's still rather confusing. Like sometimes how sometimes how easier it is to go from one period to another than others. Like I get what they wanted to do. You know, they didn't want to get so bogged down in how time travel works. Like I don't know, you spend like whole levels going from one time stream to the other. because that would help the story of the game, wouldn't it? but again, it's not very. It's just not very consistent. I'm not going to go too much into the whole off-screen shit because everyone knows how I feel about that by now. It doesn't matter how it's done. It's one. I know I said about time travel stuff earlier, but off-screen stuff in a visual medium. Doesn't matter how it's done, it just comes off to me as lazy whenever anyone does it.
It's not even
So I'm not
fleshed
gonna
out
harp too-
well.
So I'm not going to harp too much on that. But this game has other problems, bigger ones. I don't think the ending was completely bad. I did like the stuff during the credits. So I guess that counts as part of the ending. Plus, I mean, I can see what I can see what they're going for. The problem is how they did it. Like Sly suddenly deciding to save this guy who's been messing up his whole family lineage.
Yeah.
I guess maybe Sanzaru didn't like that aspect and thought he was a psychopathic killer, so wanted to avert that.
That's even if that was intentioned with it doesn't really show it that was it.
It
And
just
like you
comes
said,
off as inconsistent character writing more than anything.
I'm just spitballing here because a lot of times because I've seen that happen a lot of times in fiction. People see the good guy kill people a lot, and maybe they were afraid, or maybe they misread comments online or something.
Actually, Drews, you can help me on this one since you had the more experience and I forgot all the things and Blue also the alcohol. Is there a particular James Bond movie where he actively tries to save the villain but he fails at that or something? Instead of just rather killing them.
I don't think so.
Well, I mean, if that is the case, that those are like the really minor villains. Like there was this bit in The World Is Not Enough where he tries to convince this woman not to blow herself up in a hot air balloon, but she's so afraid of the I won't spoil it now, villain, that she kills herself by blowing herself up in a hot air balloon. But that's like the only time I can remember that happening in the Bond films.
Okay then.
Besides, it was really late on by that point. It was 1999. As for the characters, for the most part, they're fine. It's just I think the issue is when they get to the sillier bits, like with Carmelita's pretty poorly rendered belly dancing. But it is still rather iffy. Yeah, it's like Carmelita definitely got the worst of it, but all the rest of them, I think Murray managed to avoid that.
There's still that bit in chapter 3 where it's unnecessary at the best and eye-inducing in any case.
Yeah, but
about,
it was hardly the worst of it though,
Yeah, I have to agree on that. It's still a thing,
It's
but I
bad.
do believe it's the more harmless of what happens to the main characters.
Let me put it like this: it's bad writing, but it's the kind of bad writing where there's much, much worse stuff that you kind of even forget about it by the time of chapter 4.
I also argue it doesn't overstay its welcome. While stuff like Penelope, you actually still feel it after it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've already. Okay,
Yeah,
I've
I already
talked.
talked about that.
Yeah, I've already talked about Penelope, so I'm not gonna. I won't go too much into that. Wait, weren't there other characters in the third game that you just didn't bring back for this one?
It
Yeah,
is
like,
weird. Panda King, the shaman.
The guru. We get to see the staff, in this case.
I meant ones that were in the main Cooper gang in the last one.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, that's what you mean.
That's what we're talking about. The
Yeah.
newer members. It's like, well, I get that maybe their story was told, but it is weird. And it's nice that they. Well, it was nice at first that they remembered Penelope and brought her back until again they did what they did with her. So now the Cooper gang is essentially just. Well, actually, I guess technically even less than it was since Sly's missing. For real,
Carmenita is now basically the unofficial extra ranger.
That's what they're gonna have. That's what they'll call the next game now. They'll just call it the gang because Sly Cooper isn't there.
If we even get the next game, honestly, I think Sly has just as much a chance to get back to his present time as Mega Man Volnut has of getting off the moon.
Bubsy came back, Jova.
Yeah.
Like, at this point.
Jova, we also got to weird shit like modern ports of,
Plumbers
also
Don't Wear Ties.
Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, and that other game that I keep forgetting its title,
Night Trap.
There you go. Yeah. So
Anything could happen at this point.
Like the only coinage that you need to use for this is, ironic enough, time. So we'll see.
I don't know, Theo. I'm still skeptical we'll ever get a mobile port of Dr. Lautrec.
How about a Steam version?
Wait,
the
Tia.
touchscreen is barely used anyway.
Wait, Tio, would you say it's only a matter of time until we get that Dr. Lautrec sequel that's supposed to take place in
I
Milan,
wouldn't. Again, I wouldn't mind. And hey, Konami is making a sequel to Getsufuma then, so what the fuck do I know? So
If there's anything, unless there's anything that I've missed.
Well, that just leaves your opinions on two particular matters. How do you place it in comparison to the original trilogy? Par, superior, worse, different reasons. And do you think a fifth game can fix the problems that this one did?
Well, in terms of how I'd rank the games, okay, gameplay-wise, I think this might be slightly above the first one, because I mean the first one it's a first game. Of course, it's not going to be the best. I mean, and if it was the best, that'd actually be kind of worrying.
Yeah.
Imagine. I mean, could you imagine if other series did that? The best gameplay in Uncharted was the first one. The rest.
Okay, not specifically the one you mentioned, but there are some series where there is a particular trope that's defined it that's called first installment wins, where it's either gameplay structure or design manages to work out better than its sequels. So there are some examples, but I cannot personally think of any at the moment. I just know that they do exist.
I can see what Dribs means about it being concerning that the first installment of a game series remains to be the best in the gameplay.
Yeah, because then because if that were the case for this series, by this point we'd probably be getting memes of Sly Cooper was never good, etc., etc.
Also, Dribs, I gotta say, this has been quite surprising with how much this game is giving you to talk about, final thoughts-wise.
Well, I mean, last thing, there are a lot of talking points regarding this game.
Mm-hmm. Go on.
In some aspects, I would say some bits and pieces of the story were done better here than in the third game, because they at least kept the focus on the main cast for the most part, rather than just chuck a whole bunch of people in. Unfortunately, it's kind of counterbalanced by the stuff that kind of got screwed up.
That's one way of putting it.
So, yeah, I'm not saying it's a fantastic game or anything, but in terms of games that came out around this time, I've seen, I've seen worse. I mean, those, 20, oh, it wasn't even the worst one of 2013.
Like, we
There was
did
stuff
have
like
time
Rise
to...
of Hell Retribution.
Wait, I thought that was 2012. Oh god, that was 2013. Jesus.
Yeah. If this game were worse than Rise of Hell Retribution, then everything would have just
At least we don't get sex scenes that are basically dry humping. Thank
Oh.
God.
I guess
Yeah,
Zenzara
someone-
managed to restrain themselves enough for that.
Or yeah, actually, this game came out before Rise of Hell Retribution.
But basically, for last being dweebs, the other thing that I mentioned, do you believe that a fifth game can actually propel the franchise back to new heights, and manage to course correct and whatever this game made bad?
So long as they don't fall into the trap like, say, Rise of Skywalker did, where they spend so much time course
Making
correcting,
fun of it, yeah.
they can barely focus on anything else. Not to mention, doing stuff like that is really easy to come off as really mean-spirited towards those that did like the previous thing.
I'm actually...
Do you believe something similar to what Crash to Insanity did in regards to what Cortex could work?
That was only like one thing, though. That was like one joke. Doing it all over the place would have been really egregious and kind of harsh.
I actually do have a question to the both of you, you especially to you. Do you think that if we are to get a new Sly game, that it would be good trying to continue off of Thieves in Time?
Yes, I know what your question is. Yes, don't pretend that this game never existed. Build up on it.
Yeah, because
Easy.
that's the easiest thing to do.
To be honest with you.
No, because again, that's first of all, that's an easy way out, and second,
Take it.
No, I'm not. I'm gonna disagree. Unless it was a reboot, then I don't know. That's like that. People didn't like Superman Returns. Just part of the reason for that was just because it just kind of ignored 3 and 4, just because people didn't like those.
Yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from. I'm wanting to make good on this, but yeah, my question was mainly going to be: would you rather this continued from this and tried to make light of it? B, just sort of do the Superman Returns thing and picked up from Sly Free instead, or C, just completely reboot the series at this point because it's been so long since this last game and, well, the whole relevancy issue or whatnot.
I'm split on A and C. A because, I mean, yeah, it'll be a lot of hard work to do, but, I mean, well, it could be worth it if you do it well.
Mm-hmm.
C, because, I mean, it's been so long by this point since this game. I don't think people would be too fussed if they just started over.
Who knows if
Especially
they do...
considering, we skipped a whole console generation at this point.
Who knows, they may do the exact same thing Crash did. Remake the original 3 games and then make a 4th game that completely ignores Thieves in Time.
Yeah, because I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if it's because of time... time. Because of the length of time that's passed, if they did the reboot route, it won't be as bad as just doing Superman Returns and just ignoring it just because people didn't like it. I mean, that'd be like if I were in charge of the MCU and flat out ignored For the Dark World just because I hated it. I mean, that's ignoring things just because you don't like it. That's the kind of shit that got stuff like Doctor Who cancelled. Because the guys
wait, Doctor Who tried to do that?
No, the people in charge of the company that was making Doctor Who.
So basically,
they didn't like it, so they tried to they just tried to get rid of it as opposed to trying to improve it.
So basically, what you're talking about is what Walter Armada has been doing with the DCU ever since he took over, ignoring everything Snyder did with his films.
Which, in the cinematic universe, isn't something you really should be doing unless you give it a story reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I've mentioned an MCU example before, but I mean, if there is one thing that that I don't think was handled particularly well in the transition from Edward Norton to Mark Ruffalo, is how Mark Ruffalo looks completely different from Edward Norton. Like, I know he's supposed to be the same character,
A
but
roadie.
he just looks so radically different from him.
A war
I'm
machine.
like, wait, how is he different all of a sudden?
A racist eye promoter.
Well,
Anyway, you're done, Vibs?
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done. Overall, I don't hate this thing. There are a lot of really dumb bits, but there are also some good bits that probably would have made this game a good time if it weren't for those dumb bits. But unfortunately, the dumb parts are there, and thus it just kind of balances out into a typical 2013-ish thing in general, really, from that year. There was a lot of stuff that was just that had a lot of really good but also really bad parts. So they just kind of balance themselves out into being just kind of fine.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's about it.
Shiroi.
Well, I don't really hate this either. Like, if I had an attachment to the series, I probably would, but it's mostly just baffling to me. A lot of weird stuff. Especially with who they made the, secondary villain, I should call her. It seems, like I said, when that plot twist came about, it just seems like they picked her for the sake of drama.
Yeah.
Why didn't they just use Clockwork for the main villain anyway?
It really does seem like Clockwork would have been the obvious slam dunk villain to have for a time-traveling venture. Maybe they didn't want to be defined by the original trilogy, but like we mentioned...
But they kept showing him off, like, throughout.
Yeah.
Like, hints of him everywhere. Tio was pointing out everyone that appeared, and there was a lot of them.
Not to mention, one of the treasures seems to suggest that we would have fought him, because, again, otherwise that little excerpt doesn't make any sense, because, no, Clockwork did not leave his eye behind swearing revenge and all that at all, so maybe this... I wonder if maybe there was originally a narrative where Clockwork was supposed to be the main bad guy, but that got
That's
scrapped.
what I was about to say. There's way too much foreshadowing of, like, his presence for it to have not been the case.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe very early on. In which case, why keep all that stuff in there?
Oh. It is baffling, you're right.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and also the reason for Penelope's portrayal is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
The time travel is even worse. I tried to understand it in the first place, but it's just way too convenient. And a lot of the artifacts just happen to show up, like, for people, which is even worse.
That's what happens when you make your time travel device be so specific in how it works.
I like the Sonic CD approach where it's so simple you can't possibly fuck it up.
Yeah.
I get that that's probably not very interesting, but time travel is a weird one. I'll have to get a listen to the music properly later. Couldn't really hear a lot of it. The acting was fine still, at least. I actually don't mind how the, they seem a bit brighter. Like, the colors seem slightly more, like, oversaturated, but I still think they look fine. It was just weird to get used to.
Yeah, what do you think instead of a conclusion? Again, remember, this has been the canonical conclusion from 8 years at this point.
Including
I'm
Carmelita.
sorry for I'm sorry for everyone who waited.
What did you
And
think?
that's what I have to say about that.
What did you think of Carmelita's contributions in the end?
Oh boy. Like, okay.
Shake that booty, yo.
Six Axis style.
Again, you should have just let Murray be pretty. He wanted to be pretty.
Or again, if you wanted to have us play as Carmelita, have her shoot up a joint, you know, because she has a gun that can stun people if you don't want to kill.
Yeah, again, it's what Jova said, but there's also the fact, remember, the Murray, the game when Murray, did that in the first chapter. It was mostly also played for comedy, but it managed to work out at the end of the day. So at the very least could have a repetition of that. The one with Carmenta seems to be still played for comedy in some capacity, but it's pretty clear that it's just the main intention is just there because someone had a boner for her.
Not helped
And
by the
on
fact that
that
it turns out to
note-
be pointless.
Oh boy, these I want to hear.
Oh,
Go on.
let's do
No,
this.
no, I have something to say about this. It'll be short. Don't worry about it. Okay, to make it clear, Carmelita's appearance and attitude are not inherently sexual. However, the shift from the character as we know her from the trilogy to this game, somebody definitely wanted to bone her.
Mm-hmm.
That is,
Yep.
it's just like it's what fan fiction's for. Whoever was behind this idea, like, she was fine as she was. Like, Penelope, I wasn't too bothered by. She didn't change all that much in comparison. But Carmelita was like, yeah, somebody just had a thing for her and made that perfectly clear. Just, ugh, no.
This isn't it.
No, this
He's
isn't
any
it.
chief.
Like, she was pretty as she was. I don't get people. Like, just...
People just want more of everything.
Mm-hmm. Again, DeviantArt exists.
Maybe
It had that name for a reason.
I wonder, maybe the artist for this game was a veteran of DeviantArt.
I don't know. Not sure what else I have to say about the game,
Well, okay.
at this point.
Ending-wise, do you think it was wise of them to end things the way they did with this game? Like, regardless of whether or not they
No,
knew
they
this was
ended
getting
it on a
sequel.
teaser hook, or even that, not even for a new game, for DLC, which never even happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like why would they go from I can't remember who said it. I think it might have been you, Jova. It's like, why would they do this if they weren't
Mm-hmm.
if they were sure about it? Why would they just cancel it? They set it up. Why they stop?
Yeah, like, it really is a weird, twisted web of weave stuff. So what did you think of Le Paradox as the newest, greatest, ultimate villain? The one who's able to get the pull on Sly to the point where Sly is more or less now trapped in time.
Honestly, considering what he's like, I think the fact that he got as far as he did says more about Sly than it does about him.
Yeah.
Like, this new villain's pretty pathetic.
His motivations aren't much better either.
No, like, this is a problem with your father, not Sly. Get over yourself.
Seems of a father much.
Yeah, like, of course, like, that's one thing I'm not keen on, is making the descendants of, the person who did the crime suffer. Because that makes sense.
I mean, okay, with Clockwork, you can argue it was like an entire generational thing. It wasn't fixated on a specific Cooper and had the rest of the family line suffer
but that's
as a
where it
result of it.
differs. This was, like,
Yeah.
one specific person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Again, you should have just had Clockwork do it.
And again, yeah, I mean, and it's all because of something the Paradox's dad effectively did to himself. Like, yeah, it really does feel like originally Clockwork or Penelope were supposed to be the bad guys, but the Paradox just feels like he got shoehorned in as the main bad guy. Like, and that's not good for your main villain when he feels like he's essentially just a last-minute replacement.
Also, don't appreciate characters going through the exact same arc they did in the previous one again.
Yeah.
Well,
And that's it, I think, for this. Didn't
let
like
me
it,
let me ask the
don't hate it.
question when let me ask the question when one, how do you think this game stand compared to the original trilogy? And two, do you think a fifth game can actually fix the problems of this, or do you think it should be just be forgotten and start again from from the basis of the end of Honor Among Thieves.
I think they should probably start again because I think they botched the lore a bit too much here.
Agreed.
I can definitely see an argument to be made for that.
Also, I would, as for how it compares to the original trilogy, I think this is one of those cases where it is, especially with how, you know, you mentioned how Sly is with his ancestors, it is quite disrespectful to the original trilogy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe not out of malice, like, you know, like Pedro was saying, it seems more of, okay, they just kind of fucked up here, but it wasn't like... There wasn't any ill intent. There wasn't any ill intent behind it.
Not attributed to malice, but can be easily attributed to stupidity.
Well,
Yeah,
I do attribute to Malice the decision done to Carmelita.
As do I attribute malice to the stuff done with Penelope.
No, that isn't malice. That's just horniness to you.
Exactly what you were saying.
Well, okay.
It's a matter of perspective, really.
Like I said, I attribute it to stupidity until we get to the point with Penelope. Like, no. The thing with Penelope was all kinds of just, no. There's only so much stupidity you can have. Like, again, I'm not gonna say that's the case, but it really feels like somebody freaking hated Penelope. Or hated Bentley and wanted to make him suffer without making it too obvious, but just, Jesus.
But yeah, alright, and like that's it then. Now that I've answered the question, that's it.
Yeah. Alright,
Pedro.
Pedro, yeah.
Okay. Like I said, the visuals are fine, but I think they could be better. The music is good, like all the others. Like I said, I would have to properly listen to all of them in their entirety to properly compare. I think all of them are fine, but that's just me. About on the same level. Yeah. The gameplay is for the most part fine, but there are some baffling minor decisions here and there. I would have to play it again to comment more probably on the controls because it's been a long time. I've only played this game back when it first came out and never touched it again. And this ending reminded me exactly why. The story is just... I'm not saying there's not a single good moment in it, but it's hard to focus on the goods, on the whatever little good it has when practically every major plot point past the first couple chapters leaves such a bad taste in your mouth.
Especially the ending. It's the typical case where an ending can indeed ruin the journey for you.
It's just like there's way too much crap. Like the story collapses under the weight of its own crap, and the crap buries what little good is there in it. It's just like the characterization is terrible for a lot of these people. The plot points are a lot of times made out of clearly questionable intentions. And like Shiro said, they fucked up the continuity way too much for this thing to be salvageable. Like seriously, it's like the person who wrote this, whoever he or she is, never actually played the other games, even though it's like the person who wrote this only read the synopsis on Wikipedia.
Do you think this person had a moment of clarity near the end and thought, my God, what have I done? I need to take my name off of this or else I'll be hunted down for this.
Like Shiro said, like when it comes to the ancestors, yeah, like there are a lot of shit here that doesn't make any sense from what we learned before. The characterization of some of the main characters, like Sly and especially Carmelita, makes no sense at all, and it's just terrible. How would you even go about fixing this in the fifth game? Carmelita finds Sly. By the way, Sly, you know that period where I went all stupid? Yeah, I got better. Like seriously, I failed to realize what kind of fix can suddenly make people look on the fourth game better.
On
To be
the
honest with you.
Well, it's not a
Um,
matter of making a look on the fourth game better, but more like, keep the franchise instead on track.
if I may
Yeah.
ask, Pedro, and
Like I said, Teo, I think the franchise reached a nice end of the track in 3, and we could have just let it retire in glory. But go ahead.
okay, Pedro,
Joe, that's it.
if I may ask an edited version of the question I asked you and Dwibs. Let's say you did need to continue the franchise, but say you did it with rebooting. Would you in turn reboot the original trilogy so that the third game could have a less controversial ending, or would you essentially remake the original trilogy and then continue it with a new fourth game that doesn't spin the eye of the trilogy?
If I had to reboot the franchise, yeah, I'd basically follow the base plot points of the original trilogy, but I would improve upon it by expanding upon a bit more, throwing in some more character development, a bit more character scenes here and there. Basically, I could just take what Sucker Punch's original ideas were and just expand upon them. Now that games are not as limited as they were back when Sucker Punch made their trilogy. Basically. Do exactly what Final Fantasy VII Remake did pre-ending. Basically, do something like that. Basically, no. As for me, it's one of those cases where, like, okay, as for the whole fifth game option, if I had to write a sequel to this bloody mess, okay. Taking aside the option, I get that me quitting the job and is not an option on this hypothetical. So
I would
what can
argue
do?
that it is possible to try and salvage things. It's a tough process, but not impossible. Like I said, first off, retcon it that Penelope was brainwashed or something to just get rid of the whole her turning evil plot point thing. Yes, it may come off as an asshole, but it's something that's better than the alternative.
Yeah, like I guess I would have to try to my best to find some reasons to justify what the fuck happened here. But I cannot kid you. If I was going to write something to justify all this crap, I would have no idea where to even start, to be honest with you. It would be like trying to. It would be like that would be the equivalent of me trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle where some of the pieces are missing. Like, I just don't understand how exactly do you want me to do this. I don't see a solution here. I do not see it. The point, yeah, my basic point is this. Yeah, no, there is nothing, and this is something that this is one of those things where me and Tail hold opposite positions. There is no, when it comes to my stance on these franchises, is there is nothing wrong with a franchise going out on top. You've reached your top. Now you felt like, okay, I think I've reached my peak. I might as well retire and move to other pastures. There's nothing wrong with that. And especially because most of the time, not every, most of the time, when another person tries to take over shit like this, very often it goes wrong, and I think that tells you something. Like sometimes there's nothing wrong with going out on top. A lot of competitors in sports do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Go out on your prime, instead of just prolonging something unnecessarily. And I will argue, yeah, this game is just like, okay. And yes, I get that the third game did leave some stuff open. I get that, but this is the best they could do. Like if Sansa presented this script to me, I would throw the script in the writer's face. Like, do you want to ruin me? I just don't. Flaws in all. The third game is one that I felt was a fine enough conclusion that allowed for Sly and Connolly to have their happy ending, and I feel like we could have just gone off of that. There's nothing wrong with an happy ending, and you had to take the happy ending away from me, didn't you?
It's how I feel about Ace Attorney 4. Thankfully, Ace Attorney 5 undid that.
Yeah.
Well, Okay, yeah.
No. Okay, no. As demonstrated by the 3DS games, yes. Ace Attorney 4 was definitely much more. Okay, it was mostly Phoenix's character that was the problem in terms of continuity stuff. I think I'll
It
have
was
to
more,
think.
rather than having, characters ruined, it was more like the absence of them.
It was the absence of
Well,
characters, but the ruination of Phoenix's character and some other bits, which suggested that no one was around to help the poor guy out.
Yeah.
That being said, though, I do feel like part of the reason we don't regard Ace Attorney 4 as bad is also because Ace Attorney 5 and 6 did help to address things. They weren't perfect, mind you, but at the very least, it helped it so that the series didn't end on the downer note of Phoenix literally losing everything, his badge, the love of his life, his friends, and all that jazz. Whereas this one pretty much does just that, because as far as we know, this is the end of the series.
When a story has reached its natural conclusion, just let it conclude. I'm looking at you, Toy Story 4.
Oh boy.
It's just like I'm also looking at you, Gears of War 4. You also took away my happy ending as well. But whatever. The point is, I just think this game, it was a mistake. Yes, Sly 4 was a mistake. It's nothing but trash. No, it's not really. I'm kidding. But it really. But this game, yeah. Like, okay, if they really wanted, Sun Zero was never up to the task. Yeah, I'm just gonna say it. Sun Zero was never up to the task of making a follow-up to Sucker Punch's trilogy. Because, let's face it, they're a mediocre developer at best. If you take a look at their catalog of games, this is their best game. How sad is that?
Jeez.
A game that left its fan base with a bad taste in its mouth is their best game.
I'm gonna argue that Sonic Boom Fire and Ice may have been a better game than this. By proxy of not having as many errors and issues to it.
Sure, I guess Fire and Ice. Sure, that game is still very average as well. Like Sensor was just never. Sensor was never the right developer for this project. They really wanted this game to succeed. They should have given it to a much better developer.
Like, at least with
really up to the task.
Like, at least with a company like Mercury Steam, they started off in weird places, but they proved themselves. Sansaru, as far as I'm concerned, has yet to really prove themselves.
Not to mention, okay, Sucker Punch, as far as I'm aware, didn't really have any direct supervision / involvement in this. Yes, they approved it, but they didn't want actually involved in any of it. Whereas for Castlevania Lords of Shadow, Kojima was actually there as the producer, overseeing things, and that's why those games still turned out fine. Despite Mercury Steam being a newbie at the time, Sanzero wasn't even a newbie at this point in time. They already had a track record, and it wasn't exactly stellar. So no, trusting this franchise to a developer that, let's face it, was flat out incapable of the task, was just a bad idea. I don't think Sanzero was ever up to the task, and whoever this writer is who decided to take his name out, I get the feeling he knew how bad his script was, and decided to take his name, to ask for his name to be taken out of the credits so that nobody can ask him to justify himself. That way he can be an anonymous nobody on Twitter, and nobody knows what he did. Basically, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Possibly. That all you got?
Yes, basically. This game was a mistake, and once again, another fourth game. Again, I'm not a Halo fan, but from what I've heard told to me by Halo fans I've talked to, yet another, that's another game where the fourth game, let's just say, wasn't like. The point is, well, I'm not going to talk about Halo because I don't know, but the point is, yet another fourth game in a franchise that we've commented that took away the MP ending from me. Why fourth games? Why do you insist on taking away my happy ending?
I suppose, to be fair, Halo 4 technically isn't the fourth mainline game since Halo Reach was a thing. It's just that Halo Reach was a prequel.
That's why I didn't want to comment on it. I don't really have the knowledge to properly comment on that.
Okay.
So I don't. That's why I backed out on commenting on it properly. The point is, why fourth entries? Why do you insist on taking my happy ending away from me? I like that happy ending. You took it from me. Why? Oh well, that's it. I'm done.
Java.
Like I said, if we were in the timeline or the current point in time where this game, while it had rocked the boat massively, if this were a case where, okay, this game screwed up, but at least we have sequels to fix stuff, I would not dislike this game as much as I do. But until we get a new Sly game, sorry, this game is pretty much the game that killed Sly Cooper. And not figuratively speaking. Like, no, the franchise has been on ice ever since 2013. That is yet another 8 years. Go figure. Oh dear. Okay, look. The story doesn't start off necessarily... Well, okay, no, the story does start off with stupid bits. Like, Sly just immediately going into the thieving game because he has an itch. No, after all the hard work he did to get out of the game, I cannot buy that he would just go back into it for an itch. It's like I said, you could have easily have just had it be he gets back into the game because of what's happening to the Thievius Raccoonus, which implies that time is getting messed up. Like,
not just that, Jova. Again, it was rushed as fuck. They didn't even build up to his decision. He just took it like on the blink of an eye.
Yeah, and it's like, again, I mean...
It's in turn 4, they actually built it up to the decision to do that. Not to mention his brother, on his knowledge, needed help, so it made more sense there.
Like I said, it reads like bad fan fiction. Oh,
yeah.
We want the characters back into the status quo, so let's do this. Oh, we want Carmelita to do this completely out of character thing so she'll look sexy. Who cares if it's out of character? Let's do it anyway. Hey guys, I got this idea about Penelope. No idea's a bad idea. Like, jeez.
Kids is just because you can do something, that doesn't necessarily mean you should.
And look, maybe, for the sake of argument, we could argue that all these plot points could have been done well. Even if that's the case, that is clearly not what happened. Seriously, Penelope becoming a villain has been, and I kid you not, one of the most collectively hated twists in video games. And I am not exaggerating. Like, that is one of the most infamous turns you will hear about in video game history, because everything about it does not work. It tries to retcon behavior from previous games, which doesn't make sense. It tries to suggest that she was always evil, which completely goes against her character. And it has the goal to suggest that this is how she really was all along. In by no means a clever way. And I'm just gonna say it, the game pretty much peaks by Chapter 2, as far as I'm concerned, with the Western stuff. Because after that, well, yeah, we get Murray's dumb stuff in the caveman level. And of course, like I mentioned after that, there's the medieval level, which has the whole Penelope thing. And Chapter 5 feels like it's getting rushed too much. We don't do as much as we could have with Miss Decibel. And like we've mentioned, the Carmelita stuff. And Chapter 6, which doesn't even really get its own chapter name, is just so lame. And like, for something that's supposed to be an epic finale, it feels like a whimper. And again, the Paradox is apparently the oh-so-great villain who gets one over Sly in the end, which I don't buy at all. He feels like a villain Sue at best. And look, I don't want to hate this game, okay? Like I said, this game had 8 years worth of hype. Nobody wanted to hate this game. The hype was really there. But like I mentioned, it didn't live up to the advertising in a lot of cases. It flat out got rid of characters, bafflingly enough, and the characters that did come back arguably came back worse. It ruined a lot of what was accomplished in Sly Cooper 3 in very tasteless fashions, mind you. Like, I wouldn't attribute it to malice, except until when we get up to Penelope, in which case I'm like, no, the writers know what they're doing, and they don't care. Or worse, they do care, and they actually think this is legit good, and, well, it ain't. And honestly, I don't think ending it this way was a wise idea. Like, okay, even if the DLC was gonna be like that, it probably would have been one of those weak cases of, oh, in order to get the real ending, you need to pay for DLC. So, kind of a lose-lose situation. I mean, obviously, the situation where we at least get the conclusive ending would have been fine. But having to be paid as DLC, that's the same issue people had with the Prince of Persia remake in 2008. It's just, No, it was not a good idea. At the very least, give him a conclusive ending so in case this game, doesn't do well enough to warrant a sequel, at least you won't have fans even more pissed off at you for essentially dooming Sly to... might as well call it not quite the Volnut Moon case, but something similar, because this is the last we've seen of him, not counting a certain other game. Actually, would it be spoiling if I mentioned what it is?
No, we did mention it in the run actually.
Okay,
Rift
yeah.
Apart, the Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart can actually. It's an okay. One thing I didn't talk about it. Rift Apart possesses some audio logs that you can collect, and some of them include cheekily referencing some other Sony IPs. Sly is among them. Also, Knack is in there too. It's nice.
Well,
But
Mark Cerny was actually one of the technical producers of the game, so I'm guessing that just.
I'm mostly just like I mentioned at the end of Knack 2. I'm still fine on the idea of continuing the franchise of that 2 if they can actually make something good out of it.
I mean, yeah, that kind of did have a bit of a sequel hook as well, but I mean, I'll admit, at least Knack 2 feels like it's a conclusive enough ending to the franchise. At least again, we didn't even get.
It's also more positive. Like I mentioned in Janos Live 1, cherish that happy ending because each subsequent ending progressively gets worse.
Like, again, at least with Sly Free, we could say that they finally got out of the risky, life-endangering business and could move on with their lives. Which Sly 4 negated, and... oh boy, that ending. Like... again, ending your boss on a lame QTE event is not cool anyway, but we don't even get the satisfaction of really taking the Paradox down. He only gets taken down by his own ineptitude anyway. Which kind of suggests that what was the point of him fearing death, seeing as how he fell anyway and he was just fine. So Sly going to help him makes even less sense, or rather it accomplished even less than needed.
So, Joe, I guess the better question is... which villain had the more pathetic self-death? This one or the villain of Dr. Lautrec?
Well, technically Dr. Lautrec, because the Paradox didn't even die. He
struck a defeat.
I'm gonna say the villain of Lautrec, because at least Sly did get to beat the Paradox, literally. The villain of Lautrec, he's just...
Vidocq literally summons the ultimate treasure, the ultimate...
and gets eaten.
Gets eaten immediately.
like, damn, like, that was very, very lame. I guess I'll give... congrats, La Paradox, you're not as lame as Vidocq.
You know what? That's only one. You only get one clap for that.
I mean, of course you only get one clap because that probably represents the amount of people who remember Lautrec these days.
Yep, basically.
Oh boy, like, when I think about this game, it's not purely rage, but sadness, and just not in a good way. They could have made something better, but Sanzaro went with a lot of the blatantly wrong decisions. They brought the ancestors in, that was neat. It didn't feel like we got as much as we could have, though, as Tio has mentioned, and sadly, the way Sly interacts with some of his ancestors completely negates his character from the original trilogy. And yeah, I do have to wonder, how did they check the series Bible enough for the story? Because there's a lot of time when stuff gets blatantly contradicted, not just in the story, but even the treasure list, as Tio pointed out. Again, I'm not going to act like this game is the worst game ever, but being a Sly fan, that just amplifies the disappointment. Waiting all those years for a follow-up only to get this mess of a game. Like, it starts off... oh, go on.
This would be like if Dubs' fears for the Lady Layton era were actually right on the money. Fortunately, they weren't, as we know, because remember, for the record, everybody back when it was first announced, Dubs was afraid that they were going to have Layton now be a deadbeat father, which was now, thanks to the anime, we know that that's not the case at all. Unlike these people, he actually had a good idea for what to do with Layton after the original series. Fortunately, go ahead.
But, yeah. I don't wish ill will on Sanzaro, but I do agree with Pedro that I don't think they were the best people for the job. And it's not just a case of their repertoire, it's just like, they've never really seemed to have hit it that big. Like, and the fact that this is probably their biggest game does say a lot.
Okay. Granting the Fire and Ice thing, yeah, that probably is an overall less game to piss you off. But at the same time, look, okay, Fire and Ice is average, okay, but that's the best you've got. That's it. That's the highlight of your catalog.
Yeah, it's not exactly that impressive. As for things I did like about this game, like I said, the voice acting is pretty cool, and a lot of the designs for the ancestors and their different voice actors are neat. Tennessee Cooper, played by Sam Riegel, being my favorite. I do like the personality that they give to each of them. For the most part, anyway. Really do not care for Murray's quote-unquote character arc. Like, I can't tell if they're trying to be silly or if they're trying to be serious with that one. If they're trying to be silly, it ain't funny and it wastes time. And if they're trying to be serious, that's arguably even worse because Murray was never the climber. Just, no, again, did you actually look at the original games? Is there not a Bible you can look from? That's the most baffling thing about this game to me, just how much it contradicts stuff. And half the time it feels like they weren't trying.
If they really wanted Sunstar to work this, at least have Nate Fox or at least someone from Sucker Punch supervising them.
Well, that depends. Like, were Sucker Punch, really still,
Well, they were working on Infamous. They were working on Infamous Second Son by this point. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But couldn't they afford at least one person from over there, one of the producers, to at the very least go in there once in a while and check on things?
I suppose. Okay, look.
Have someone from Sucker Punch have a producer role. Someone. Like, not necessarily Nate Fox, because he was busy directing Second Son, but couldn't we get somebody? Anybody?
I really do wonder, but that's it. To take my foot off the gas pedal of negativity for a bit, the gameplay is not terrible. Well, most of the time. There are some times when it is terrible. 6-axis! Like, seriously. 6-axis did not need to be a thing. Stop trying to make it a thing. Anyway, the QTE stuff, not really needed. But I'm sorry, I don't find this to be the best gameplay-wise of the series. Like, there are some things that are nice, but it just feels like we traded a lot of cool moves for, well, other stuff. And yeah, the ancestors are nice, but at the end of the day, they feel like power-ups that you could have given Sly, essentially. Not to say that I did not want the ancestors in, I do like it, but they do feel similar enough to Sly that I'm like, this could have just been a power-up to Sly. And I can see why some people would have been disappointed with that over the multitude of characters we got in Sly 3. Make of that what you will. That being said, if you do like this game for its gameplay, all the more power to you. But like I mentioned, the gameplay is just one factor in a puzzle piece of a mess, I'd say. Like, again, I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that for as much as people did like the gameplay of Sly, it was not the sole reason people like Sly. Like, if the gameplay was the sole reason we like Sly, this probably would have been a slam dunk. Loved it. All nice. Buy the t-shirt and everything. But
except for the 6-axis.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, it's the thing as a whole that just fails. The narrative fails, the characters. The art style got a lot of split reactions, and I'm not surprised. Even the 2D animated cutscenes are hit and miss. They give out this weird flash sense here and there. I'm not completely against them, but they do have some merit to them. I can respect that Sanzuru maybe thought they were injecting more character into stuff, but I do feel like it probably would have been better if they tried to stay more consistent with the original trilogy. That being said, what we have at the end of the day is a title that I sadly have to call mediocre at best. Don't get me wrong, there are some parts where I do think the game soars, but because the project as a whole is just bad, and like I said, those moments that really do drag the story down to hell, I consider it a mercy to call it mediocre at best. I mean, and if I were to describe it at worst, it's just... It's what it is, a franchise killer. It let the franchise down, it let the fans down, as a result it didn't sell as well, and here we are now. The end. Tio, close us out.
Well, you did. I forgot if you did mention, but
Yeah?
since from your very last phase, here we are now. Where to go next?
Oh, yeah. So, okay, I guess for me, I could see either option working. I could see a Sly Cooper 5 being an interesting venture to fix the mess that Sly Cooper 4 did. Granted, we are at a point where some of those fixes would feel like ass pulls, considering how much they have wrecked the canon. But there is a possibility. That being said, if we did make a Sly Cooper 5 from this timeline, that might just have to be the last one, because there's only so many times you can justify Sly getting back into the game of crime, especially if they do want to eventually have him settle down with Carmelita. So, I don't know. On the other hand, a possibility could be remaking the trilogy and changing the ending of Free to something that allows Sly to maybe still be a thief, and maybe Carmelita's kind of okay with it some way, somehow, so that we wouldn't have to, well, break them up as a couple in Free. In, like, a new 4 or whatever or whatnot. That, and there is the possibility of just remaking it and eliminating Sly Cooper, Thieves in Time from the get-go, which I'll admit, I get how that would disappoint some people, but me personally, I would not mind, because I'm sorry, Thieves in Time just really, really hurts. And I would not shed any tears if that game was wiped from the canon. Because, no, it just was not it. So there's my answer. I could see Sly 5 maybe working, but my preference does sort of lean towards redoing the series and just ignoring 4. Alright then, Tio, close us
Sure.
out.
All right. It's tough at the end of the day because, as I demonstrated, there are a lot of things in this game that piss me off to no end. The misuse of QTEs, the handling of some particular characters, and just how rushed and contrived some things are. That being said, there are still a good chunk of things that I actually still appreciate in the game. The gameplay, again, being the one who actually recorded, I can test you all. The controls feel smooth and responsive, there are much more options. Sure, a couple of moves have been cut away and you lose the other member of the gang from free, but like I kept saying, those were really felt like a one-time thing, kind of thing. Sure, it would have been better if Dimitri actually talked. I don't know actually what happened in development for them to drop any voice recorded that was about him, because one of the first video trailers had him speaking, like I said. But no, it is responsive, it's fun, it actually expands upon the formula of the previous games by having the treasures actually stack, being a form of collectables, and to answer Jova's question from right near the beginning, yes, it is fun to actually 100% the game. In terms of collectible, the trophy list is a bit more specific. It requires you to do some peculiar things that they still haven't done to platinum the game yet, but it might be a possibility to the future anyway. And the mini game variety is a testament to what the franchise has been until this point. Now, the music, like I said, still saying it's my favorite, and I do believe it's still the best of the compositions of the entire entire franchise. Don't get me wrong; it's not like the soundtracks of 2 or 3 were bad, but these does clearly feel like a step up, not just in terms of the quality, but actually the composition, the variety, how they're composed, how much Peter McConnell is having fun in composing for this. You can definitely feel it. And I actually do have more tracks from this game than from the previous one stacked to listen, because they're also memorable to me. The voice acting, it's fine. Honestly, the veterans are just fine to me, and the newcomers are actually good welcomed. They actually, like Dave said, we actually managed to get people like Steve Blum, and Lowenthal to replace the more, lack of a term, cheap one that they had back for the PS2 trilogy. So there is that. Gray Griffin is fine as Carmelita. At least I can tell that the voice acting is the only one of the two decent thing about her, the other being her gameplay.
For as little as we
but-
get to play as her, she.
Well, it is present nonetheless, so I want to count it that.
True. Yeah. fair
As for the
enough.
story, let me start from the beginning. I made no secret that I really don't like the ending of 3, and I don't really consider it a happy ending of any kind. I really didn't got the idea that Sly just wanted to get out of the thieving business. So him just suddenly saying, "Oh, I wanted to get into the business," for me is more of a case of when did you left? Like, but I agree that we could have just excised that line and having be the conflict just be the time travel that sparks again. The game not bothering to actually bother to sit down and talk more about Sly's and Carmelita relationship is a problem.
It doesn't help that the game kind of sides with Carmelita because Sly never counters with her. Well, yeah, I lied to you, but you lied to me first, clearly obstructing the law of duty. It's just
she lied to me.
Just, no,
she
Carmelita
hates me.
has to
She showed me, abusing me, virginity.
But it's like, no, apparently it's Carmelita who needs to forgive Sly, and not a mutual thing.
And that's the being generous towards her because her character is clearly the worst that gets done in this game, even worse than Penelope. I argue Penelope, sure, her turn to evil is uncalled for, but like Liz mentioned, can actually work with the right context. I'm not for the idea of brainwashing because that's another kind of words that I don't think anyone should touch, especially when it comes to Penelope. But I do get the idea of her feeling resentment. Or her feeling like a shift happening of some kind could still work. And I get the idea that the direction we wanted to go was she's the one who creates the hate ship and thus makes things close full circle in a stable kind of time loop. Which would have been a neat idea to actually bring back Clockwork. But again, that's only speculation. Mary's story arc is just there. They could have easily not have that, and him just contribute occasionally would have been fine. And like I said for chapter 3, not every character who had an arc needs to get a new one necessarily. Just have them work as they had to be intended, and you should be good to go. Let me give a very weird example, but I really think that works. The Nora unit from Snow's posse did not really get a new story arc for 13.2, but they're relatively fine for what they have to do. Like, sure, their presence is not that big, and sure, the game in itself is not good, but contained for that, for the example that I want to make, it's a case where they didn't need to have an entire new idea going on with a returning character. In this case, a set of characters. Again, the twist with Penelope is handled so bad roughly that is the lowest point in the game. The paradox as a villain is the main villain is just pathetic compared to the other previous ones. And the fact that he doesn't even die is the one of the catharsis factor because you know what I think about villains and how specific their comeuppance has to be.
And like I said,
someone like Perezox doesn't deserve to live, plain and simple.
And like I said with Azul, I do feel that it's more in character for Zuko not to kill his sister. And, the way she gets taken out and has to live with her failure is somewhat more cathartic.
With that, Jova, like I said, it doesn't help the fact that she basically does most of the job herself by becoming like kooky crazy.
However, where I'm going with this is if it's out of character. The difference is that it is totally in character for Sly and company to absolutely waste the villains when they get the chance, especially when they mess with them. Again, the Paradox friend, not just Sly, not just his entire lineage, but the entire world. So he should totally be wasted. But no, Sly just decides to save him, saying, "Oh, you won't be any problem in jail." He was in jail originally before Sly, and look what trouble he caused.
But anyway, again, What I argue is that remove a bit the twist from chapter 4, and the entire chapter in itself might still work because it's not like that is the culmination of things. As it is, it has a villain. Again, the villain takes prisoner the Cooper of the time period. Again, makes it more in this case, it's more technological and everything. And then when Sly gets him back, we need to get back by doing shenanigans tied to the time period. In itself is relatively harmless. It's just the fact that we attach this to the twist about Penelope. And like I said, Chapter 5 and Chapter 4 should have just swapped places, honestly. For as much as of a bad twist it is, it's a good segue towards the final boss. The other villains are fine to me. Maybe not the best around, but I argue better than others. Like all of them already trumps Arpeggio, for example, from 2. Just because they have more of an impact. Arpeggio, the only thing that Arpeggio is going for is the fact that, oh yes, I orchestrated all of this and everything fell into place when not really. It was a collective effort to begin
Oh,
with.
poor Arpeggio. He kind of got jobbed.
By Nita. But true, they're not the best of the bunch, but I still do believe they're solid on their own. The Grease probably is the least interesting or, well developed to me. My favorite is LF, basically. It's, at this point, it's fine for the most part. What else for the plot? Alright. There are some minor hiccups when it comes to the animation, like the fact that we show Bentley's eyes. I know that it sounds like a stupid thing, but it is important. I had to stress. But that brings basically to the end because I think I talked enough about everything else. I do believe that its product is a mixed bag, but it's still salvageable on a gameplay standpoint alone. I'm sorry, because I do believe it's perfectly enjoyable for that kind of experience. And yes, it does leave on a sour note, but at the very least, you don't feel like you have wasted your time, which is something that you can argue, for example, with stuff like 13.2. And that being said, yes, I still want a sequel to this. The fact that this game is so polarizing and so mixed towards the bad should not discourage for having the story at the very least be concluded, or at least this kind of arc being concluded in some kind of fashion. And no, and I do mean yes. When it comes to Zen Carmelita, a good idea that I have would be, again, picking up from the fact that Zai is in Egypt alone. The team tries to track him back, but only Carmelita manages to get through at first. So the entirety of the first chapter is spent just with those two having to hang around and just doing the mission. This gives them the chance to talk, argue, have like a breakup, having to talk again, and finally settling down things.
So-
I do believe that there is a precise way where you can do things.
I'm
sure,
curious.
it can be considered kind of an ass pull and everything. But I do believe that it is a decent way out of this.
I'm curious, do you think they would be able to settle down as, lovers again?
I don't care. I'm one of those people who thinks Sly and Carmelita should not be a couple anyway, so you're asking the wrong person. I do believe that Sly works better as a free spirit. So there is that.
Okay. Not to insult you, Tia, but you tend to think that with, a lot of games.
Sorry, Jova. I do strongly believe that love interest most of the time are just there for the sake of it and tend to ruin what interesting possibilities you can have with characters. Like, take for example Lupin the Third. Lupin the Third has this whole gimmick about him being in love with the female member of his team, Fujiko Hime.
Wait, is she even a member of his team? Because more or not, it seems...
more often than not, she just deflect or tries to double cross them. But it's one of those Starscream situations where Lupin just forgives her and brings her back as soon as he can.
I do see what you mean in that regard.
But that's the thing, he's constantly in love with her, but at the end of the day, he still prefers to have the life of a thief before everything else and support his gang, because it's just more fun like that. And I do concur with that.
I do see what
Carmelita,
you mean.
And Carmelita works better as a honest-to-God, by-the-book cop who can try to have the justice system works instead of her being this figure that starts like that, but because she has the hots for Sly, basically her life gets corrupted like that.
And apparently she also now has the hots for his ancestors too, ignoring
Yeah,
how...
I only mentioned this, didn't mention much in the fan was, but instead what I said in the actual game. The fact that someone in the team had a boner for Carmelita is inexcusable anyway. The fact that we come up with better situations that can, have her still in character and still have the situation and the missions going on as intended is kind of testament to what the problems of this game actually are. So at the end of the day, again, it's a mixed bag. I do believe the franchise can continue. It needs a great focus and a team behind it, but I honest to God don't know who is at the moment who could do it. I would be almost tempted to say to ask Insomniac for help, but I'm not even sure. Like, Insomniac is specialized in shooting things at this point. Sly is more methodical, stealth and everything. I'm not sure even they can do that. But in terms of actual writing, like, I have to agree, get back Nate Fox. I do believe he can make things work. Just as a writing, I don't mean that you need to bring back Sucker Punch in their entirety because now we're busy on to other things. But no, I do believe the franchise doesn't have to die and has all the cards right on the table to actually get back on track. But only time will have to tell. For the time being, it's still nice that Sony, to an extent, is having the franchise being remembered in some fashion between Astrobot Playroom and Rift Apart, but we'll see what the future holds onto that. So stay tuned instead for whatever we'll do next. Yeah.
Yeah.
See ya.